Welcome back, everyone. So amazing speakers are joining me today. And our second guest today is Pamela Kelter. Welcome, Pamela. Thank you so much for being today with me.
Thanks, Diana. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for the invitation.
Pamela helps female professionals in STEM sectors transition to senior management roles by learning strategic, non-technical skills. She's a seasoned strategic leadership expert with over 16 years of experience working in strategy, business development, and project delivery, leading diverse teams in organizations across Australia, Asia, Europe, and North America. She has managed complex engineer projects and profit and loss of over $100 million with a team of over 100 employees. Throughout her career, she has coached professionals in their leadership journey and created a systemized online coaching program to help women accelerate their careers to senior leadership roles. Today, she will walk us through Accelerate Your Career, 4 critical skills you need to transition to a senior management role. Welcome, Pamela, once again. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Diana. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. It's a pleasure to be talking to you today. I truly appreciate this forum. My Design Tomorrow is a platform really for everyone who wants to grow and develop themselves. So congratulations on having this growth mindset, which is a very important one if you do want to be successful in career and life. Thank you for the kind introduction, Diana. As you just mentioned, I focus on helping in particular women to grow into a senior leadership role. And before I dive into how I do that, I thought it might be worthwhile sharing a bit about my background. Namely, I started my career as a strategy consultant, and later on, I decided to dive deep into one sector, the engineering, in particular the mobility sector, and became a project manager. And that's where I had to lead pretty large teams of up to over 100 people. And that's where you really learn to lead people, because you have to be able to lead such large teams. Otherwise, if you're doing everything on your own, you can't. It's so much work that you can't. You have to learn to delegate and to give people leadership so they can take on work as well and contribute to the bigger picture. And throughout my career, what I've also learned is, and I've grown pretty quickly into senior management roles, I learned that what got me here didn't get me there. I learned that in order to grow step by step into higher positions, I actually had to learn different skills. And that is really what I would like to share today. You see, when we start our career, we're often starting with a particular skill, on very often technical skill, right? Whether it's in engineering or accounting and finance or marketing, we tend to be quite focused as an individual contributor on the value and tasks that we can do ourselves. But that's not always what gets us further. I think many people who have made the first transition to their first management role have experienced that in order to grow to that first role, the biggest difference is that suddenly you become responsible for others. And suddenly, success is not only dependent on what you contribute, the task that you yourself do, but success actually becomes about how well you lead other people. How can you motivate and guide others to perform well, to become the best versions of themselves? So I think most people have experienced already that first step into growing into a management or a leadership role. So it's quite recognized that learning leadership skills is a very important skill if you want to go further. And certainly leadership is a major task and a major component if you want to grow even further. Today, I would like to invite you to think even further. So imagine you have already achieved your first management position, and now you want to grow even further to senior management. Because again, here we need to go and step up even further. And just the same way as from individual contributor to management, we had to learn new skills. This time to senior management, there are also additional skills that we need to be aware of. So you might be asking, which ones are those? There are 4 components. And I would like to walk you through these 4 components one by one. And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with Diana or later on pop them in the comments, and I'm happy to address them. All right, let's start with the 4 topics. I'll briefly mention them, and then we're going to go into the details of each of them. One is we need to be able to develop strategic thinking. Second, we need to be able to create business value. Third, we need to be able to develop critical relationships and a critical network. And the fourth one goes deeper into leadership, namely not only leadership of people, but also thought leadership, develop new ideas and communicate them. Let's go through each of them one by one, because they're very exciting actually to learn of. Let's start with strategic thinking. So why is strategic thinking important? And here, let's go a little bit back from when we started our career. When we start our career as part of a team, we often receive the guidance from our manager, from our leaders, and they give us the strategic direction. They would allocate tasks to us, and we then focus on performing on this task. But now you have to shift your mindset. You are stepping now into a new role. Now you are the one who need to provide that strategic guidance, that allocation of priorities and resources. So in order for you to provide that guidance to your team or maybe to your overall organization, you need to be able to develop what the strategic direction is going to be. And the question is then, how are you going to do that, right? Because that's not something we had to care about in the past. In the past, we were just focusing on delivering on the assignments that were given to us. So that's the change in mindset that I'm talking about, that suddenly we need to become those visionaries and provide the guidance of where do we need to go, how do we do that, and how we're going to create an advantage for the company that way. So how can you do that? There are a couple of models that you can learn that will help you to, for example, analyze your market, analyze your competition, and derive what would be a good strategy either for your organization or for your team. But my advice is dedicate specific time to strategic thinking, because in our busy day-to-day lives, sometimes we're so busy with everything that's already going on, right? We hardly have the time to actually stand back and have a think about what should be the strategy for my team. So we actually need to free up our schedule and our calendar to have that thinking space. So my advice to you, have a think about it, create maybe half a day in your calendar to just dedicate for strategic thinking. The second topic is creating business value. And this is one that I would like to summarize as, are you an entrepreneur within your company? What is interesting is, and again, this goes back to the change in mindset. When we are an individual contributor, again, we're focusing on just delivering the task. But now that we're stepping into a senior management role, we are the entrepreneur of that team or of the organization. So with our work and the one of our team, we need to create that business value. So here we need to become really switched on and have a think about what are the additional tasks that are going to help my team create an edge for the organization. Or if there's a possibility of a whole portfolio of projects and tasks, for you to analyze which one creates most business value. Because if you want to create a career, you actually need to deliver business value. It's not just about doing your tasks from A to B, but it's about creating that edge, that additional marginal competitive advantage. Because ultimately, companies need to succeed in a market. So how can you help your organization to create an additional business advantage? That's all about creating business value. And that works hand in hand with strategic thinking, right? When you do the strategic thinking, analyze the market and competition, then you move on to creating business value by thinking, how can I, with my team, create that additional business value either towards the market or within the organization? The third aspect now starts looking into more the relationships and the people side of things. You see, often when we start our career early on, we tend to focus on what I can do on my own, the results that I can deliver on my own. But as we grow our careers, we need to realize that we can multiply our efforts if we bring in partnerships. if we leverage our network. And that is, again, a new step up, because suddenly we need to let go of just doing the task and embrace now the people side of things, that I need to develop a strategic network. You see, imagine if you start connecting with key decision makers who can either become strategic partners, who can become a client or a key supplier later on, or just someone who is a very critical thinker and can provide you with really interesting know-how and knowledge, then that network becomes a good source of empowerment and ideas to you. So the core message is we can amplify and multiply our efforts if we don't try to do it alone. So developing a strategic network becomes really important the higher you grow, because you'll need to be able to be in touch, for example, what else is going on in the industry. You need to understand what other trends could I absorb and take into my team or into my organization, or where maybe there are completely new technology trends that could be a threat to my organization. So looking outside your own scope, your own team becomes really important. And that is something that can be done through networking. And again, it's a change in mindset, because instead of just performing tasks, we know to free up time and space to go out and get to meet new people, because they will help us to open our mind and perspectives to completely new things. The fourth area is a bit linked to that. I mentioned earlier, leadership is very important. And as you grow towards a senior management level, leadership becomes the number one task. Why? Because, as I said, it's suddenly, imagine you're no longer responsible for 5 people, for 100 people. Instead of just guiding individuals to do their own task, you now need to guide managers and build leaders who will then lead other people. So honing in and really working on your leadership skills so that you can develop the next generation of leaders becomes even more important. And it makes sense, right? Because then we can actually scale the organization, we can scale our efforts and help the organization grow and ourselves to grow, because with that, we develop new skills as well. One other aspect I would like to mention about leadership is thought leadership. And that is something that I think is particularly important for women. Thought leadership is something that goes in with visibility. You see, we can be the best experts in a topic. We can be brilliant in a topic. But how does it help us in our career if nobody knows about it? Right? So we actually also need to create visibility of the things that we do, of our knowledge, of our expertise, and of the results that we create. And not everybody feels comfortable with that. Yeah, some have a personality that, they love to shine and bring out all their values and their contributions, but not everyone is like that. So in my work, what I do is I help people find a way that is authentic to them of how they can show their brilliance. And one way is by showing your thought leadership, your expertise, because let's bring it out. If you have great expertise, then the world needs to know about it. So leadership also means not only focusing on people leadership, but also bringing your expertise, your contributions to the world, really, because the world needs more contributions. We have so many challenges, energy challenges, climate change energies, and also a lot of technological developments. So we do need all those brilliant ideas to be included in the developments that are going on. So thought leadership is important when you want to grow to a senior leadership role. Because when we have senior management positions open, and I've sat in a couple of meetings where we had to debate how do we want to fill this role? So we want to fill this role, senior management roles, with people who can lead others, who can create a good culture, but who also can provide that strategic vision, who create business value for our shareholders, for society, and who do all of that by bringing in their thought leadership, by bringing in their contributions. So those are the aspects that we need to bear in mind if we truly want to grow to a senior management role.
Thank you so much, Pamela. I am very inspired by everything you said, and I know that we have many people on our platform who are going to feel the same because they are in these roles. And I know that, especially when we start our careers, we really want those leadership roles and we really want to get promoted. Do you think that it is possible for someone who barely starts, maybe, or who has 3 years of experience to get into a more senior role or a leadership role? Do you think this is possible, or is something that is expected to happen maybe later on? I know that you mentioned senior management positions, but if we take it a step before in terms of leadership positions, do you think it is possible?
Thank you, Diana. That's actually a really good question that I would like to address in the following way. I think we're having a change in terms of what leadership means. I think if you look back maybe 20 and 30 years back, leadership often came with age and experience, right? And I think with technological advancement and the need for a lot of new ideas, and that's why I'm talking about thought leadership, we're shifting towards leadership means also bringing in new ideas, bringing in value. So we're no longer tied up to how many years of experience do you have, right? That's why we have suddenly, for example, great CEOs or great technology founders and entrepreneurs who are really young in their early or mid 20 years, and who are creating great organizations, because it's no longer necessary to have years and decades of experience. So back to your questions. Yes, it's absolutely possible already in earlier years to become a leader. And to become a leader, I want to add one more thing. You don't necessarily only need to look into leadership positions or leadership roles in business only. You can become a leader already in your spare time, in your family time. You know, many of us have a leadership role in our family. Like I remember my family migrated to Germany. I was the first one to learn to speak German. So at a very early age, I became a leader for my family, guiding them through German culture just because I spoke the language early. You can also take on a leadership role in an NGO, you know, or in a sports club, wherever you are having part-time engagement, and then take a leadership role. So yes, there are many opportunities to already practice and take on leadership opportunities.
I love that. Thank you so much, Pamela, for helping us, because I know, and I know many people around my circle of friends who really want this, leadership position, and sometimes they get stuck into the age. They are not trusting themselves because of this age gap. And I also fully agree with you, this is possible. And it's not about the age, it's really about the mindset. And you mentioned this several times, that there is a need to change our mindset to step into that role. How do we do that? And what does it mean to change our mindset?
Yes. Look, I think if you approach a job by thinking, I'll just go there and do whatever is being asked of me, then you're in a passive seat. But if you approach a job with curiosity and engagement, and you walk in with the idea of, all right, how can I help make this better, right? And it helps if you get along with your colleagues and you can brainstorm ideas, then you change your mindset to becoming an entrepreneur. I like to call it, are you an entrepreneur in a business, right? It really just takes that mind shift change to see yourself as an entrepreneur, because once you have that view to say, all right, I'm going to be responsible now for the results of this organization and of my team, then the rest comes in with it, because then you start thinking, all right, how can I strategically lead this team better? How can I create business value? So I would suggest start there, see yourself as an entrepreneur, and you have the power to make things better. Don't wait until you receive guidance from others. You don't need to ask for permission to suggest initiatives, to suggest new projects. You have the power within you. You can already go ahead and suggest new things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pamela. And I would like to ask you one more thing based on what you mentioned, that we need to build partnerships. that we can multiply actually our work and our performance if we look around us and we don't try to do everything on our own. And I know that this requires a big switch in our mindset as technical experts. Do you think that there is a certain way we can build these relationships? Do you have any examples from your clients on how to do this, especially for those who are more introverts and who don't maybe like to go out there and put themselves visible on in the organization or in speaking on the stage or whatever is out there? Do you think it is there is a way to do this?
Yes, there's actually plenty of ways. And I will maybe share my way because I'm actually naturally also an introvert. And if I look at the first, for example, conferences and networking events that I attended, I hated that. I absolutely hated that. I was not the person who would just naturally go and talk to people. But there was one thing that helped me to overcome it. I am also naturally a very curious person. I love to learn and I love to exchange new ideas. And when I started seeing that every person has something that I can learn from, even if either it's from their experience or a new perspective, or even if we exchange and we have the same thinking, then it just helps me to maybe find comfort that others think that same way. But once I started to approach getting to know other people and networking with curiosity, everything changed. Because then I saw it as a learning opportunity. Sometimes we think networking is just about, handing over business cards and saying hi and remaining on a very superficial level, having a conversation on a superficial level. But I would suggest and recommend to take it as a learning opportunity because you'd be surprised the kind of things that you get to learn about people, not only professionally, you will also get to learn people who have a really interesting life experience, and that will be very inspiring. And if you have one of those conversations, that will open you up to have many more of those conversations because you'll realize how many interesting people there are to meet.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pamela. And I know that what I found also in the corporate world is that sometimes people go with a certain mindset. Okay, I need to connect with this person because this person is going to help me afterwards to get promoted. And something I learned in one of my trainings is that definitely we shouldn't have this mindset because then there is a weird exchange of energies and you cannot ask like, okay, I just met you, can you promote me? And I believe that this building the relationship is what maybe is missing nowadays, especially in the networking environment. And I participated to several networking events, and I noticed this exactly what you mentioned, that is like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, how can you connect with someone in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Do you think there is a better way of doing it, or to break the gap, or something we can actually add if it's a 1 minute, 2 minutes, so that we keep that relationship, that we build it over time instead of just meeting someone and hoping that something will happen?
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. First of all, if you can make it longer than just a minute or two, that's better, because how can you create a relationship in 1 or 2 minutes, right? It's really difficult. We create a relationship if we build exposure to each other. So ideally, try and connect with people where you have the chances of meeting them more often. And by the way, meeting more often means not only offline, but maybe also online. So if you truly have only a few minutes to get to know a person, just focus on getting to know the person, not directly ask them, how can you promote me? Because who wants that, right? Imagine if someone knocks on your door and tries to sell you something within that minute, you're very likely not to buy that, even if it's a great product, right? So use those 2 minutes just to get to know that person and then to connect, for example, on LinkedIn. And then on LinkedIn, you can continue to have engagement by, for example, following what they post, engage in their posts. You yourself, you can post so they will see what you stand for, right? What are your contributions, your thought leadership? So then that connection can continue to go online, and even just as and when, there are interesting things to exchange. It's not forced. So I agree with you, Diana. Don't go into a conversation thinking, what is this relationship going to be good for?
Yes. Thank you so much, Pamela. I am honored and grateful to have you here on this platform, and I am sure that everyone is learning from you. Thank you so much for being today with me.
Thank you, Diana. It's been such a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.